Good morning. Today is Tuesday, June 8th, 2021. The highest form of tzedakah is not giving a handout, but rather giving someone a job. To help a person be able to feed and support themselves, thereby helping them get back their dignity and live a productive, fulfilling life, that is worth more than any amount of money that you could hand to a person. Giving a job to someone who no one else will hire has got to be at the very top of that list in terms of quality. So here is a successful example that comes from a recent article in Times of Israel, which also holds some very practical lessons that we can try to emulate ourselves. The story is about the Frima Bakery and Cafe, which opened about 4 years ago in San Francisco, California. It's owned by Yitzchak Yosef, who is an Israeli. It is a Sephardic bakery and cafe, kosher. And shortly after they opened, about 4 years ago, a man named Carlos Flores came to apply for work. He had just been released from prison. During his years in prison, he, among other things, taught himself to read Hebrew, so that might have made a certain connection with the Israeli owner of this bakery. He had served 23 years in prison for murder and robbery. He was what is known as a lifer, someone who received a sentence of over 20 years to life, and that is a very, very unique population. So the owner, Yitzchak Yosef, said, his honesty impressed me. I could see in his face that if I gave him a chance, he would do whatever he could to prove himself. He wanted to succeed, and if I don't give him a chance, probably no one will. Now, once Carlos was hired, then the word spread through the lifer community that here was a place where it might be possible to get a job. And this bakery, Frina, developed a reputation as a place that would be willing to hire former felons, former lifers. Okay, so that's an amazing thing. It's an incredible mitzvah. But the question is, how do you make it work? I mean, how do you overcome the obvious and intrinsic problems and dangers that this group of people pose? So, it starts with an attitude. And the attitude for this owner, Yitzchak Yosef, starts with the word kosher. Obviously, the word kosher means in accordance with Jewish dietary laws. The word kosher itself means fitting or appropriate. And Yosef says that the word kosher for him doesn't only mean what we eat. It also means how your way of life expressed itself in the way you treat others, especially in the way you treat your employees. So this bakery, Frina, is located in a neighborhood. It's a bit of a rough neighborhood. And he said as follows. He said, being a Jewish business owner comes with a responsibility. He is always careful about how he treats others in the neighborhood. He gives out food to people in need. He helps people. He says, quote, especially since there's a big kosher sign in front of the store. Everyone knows we're Jewish, he said, and we have to make sure we are giving a good name to ourselves. Okay, so it starts with an attitude, but it's got to continue with follow through. The effort to make it work must be comprehensive and it must be ongoing. So listen to a couple of examples. Yosef says he's become something of a social worker as well as a bakery owner and employer. He takes care of the unique needs of his workers. So, for example, he had one worker who, as a condition of his parole, was required to wear an ankle bracelet, an ankle monitor. The problem is that his shift lasted longer than the battery on the ankle monitor. So Yosef would allow him to shift to a different task that was located near an electrical outlet, so that while he was working, he could plug in his monitor to recharge the battery. For other workers, he spoke to their parole officers to get them special permission to be able to work at night because they were working the night shift. And normally there is a curfew for those who have finished serving time and they're still on parole. Not exactly like people who are worried about COVID, but it's a curfew all the same. And he was able to give them these letters. He sometimes lent them money for short periods of time if they had bills that stacked up. If he found out about low-income housing, for example, he would let the employees know so they would be able to find housing that they could afford. And all of those efforts and many more, that makes a difference. One of his workers said, "All Isaac wants to do is help. He taught me so much. Every day, I went to work thinking I wanted to do better for him. He treated us like family." Yosef commented that when he started to work in a bakery, he opened a bakery and a cafe. He never thought that his training in Israel as an officer in IDF would come in handy, but he used the following lesson. A good commander does not have to be the fastest or strongest or bravest. He just has to set a good example. If you do that, everyone will follow. I can only imagine that there are disappointments and setbacks. If you expect a mitzvah like that to be a one-time act and then it's going to just take care of itself, chances are it's not going to work. But this is a great example, and this is something that applies in every area of life. If you attempt to do something that is really hard, that is really challenging, outside your comfort zone, that is something very, very difficult. Here's an example that if you take upon yourself the highest mitzvah, the hardest mitzvah, and you are prepared to do the work to sustain it, then you will be able to change people's lives. Wouldn't it be great to all go on a trip to San Francisco and we could have some of the baked goods from this Frina bakery just to see the benefit of this beautiful mitzvah? I wish them success. My friends, I want to wish you a great day, and I look forward to seeing you soon in person.